Welcome to Classical Learner. I'm Brett Pike, and I'm the Parent Guide. Thank you so much for being here today, and today we're going to talk about something I'm very excited to talk about, something that I wrote an article about a week ago, and you could find at www.classicallearner.com. But before I get started, if you could just let me know you can hear me, that will always be helpful. And of course, I could run my own test. Yes, that is working. All right, so we are live. So today we're going to talk about the 14 lessons taught in elite private schools that public school students are denied, that your children are denied, that my children are denied. Hey, Liberty Snake Bear, nice to see you. And it's very important to understand the difference in the education systems between these elite private schools and what our children are taught, because through understanding, we as parents can bridge the gap. And with my business, that's what we do. At Classical Learner, we bridge the gap between the vision that parents have for their children and the school system has for their children. So, where do these 14 lessons come from? If you ever heard of John Taylor Gatto, he was the New York City Teacher of the Year in 1988, 1989, 1991. He was the New York State Teacher of the Year in 1991. And the reason he received all of these accolades is his children in the inner city in Harlem were performing better on the standardized tests than students that went to the elite private schools in New York City. Well, in 1991, John Taylor Gatto abruptly resigned from his position as a teacher, and he took out a one-page op-ed on the New York Times. And in that op-ed, he basically stated that he could no longer, in good conscience, he could no longer continue to serve a system that he knows is designed to hurt the intellectual development of young children. Now, that is quite an alarming statement made by someone who is so highly regarded in the field of education. Well, you could imagine after he resigned and took out this op-ed, he was no longer highly regarded, right? He became public enemy number one. I strongly recommend you read his books, The Underground History of American Education, Dumbing Us Down, John Taylor Gatto. Truly must-reads for anyone who's a parent and wants to understand how to properly educate their children. But Gatto, after he resigned, he spent the rest of his life picking apart, dismantling the public education system. And as part of that dismantling, he did a study of the elite private schools in the United States of America. Now, I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill private schools. He did a study on the schools that the Kennedys go to, the elite private schools that the richest and most powerful people send their children to. And he came up with 14 lessons that were taught within these private schools that our children are denied. And within each lesson is a subtext of why is this lesson being taught within the private schools and not being taught to our children. And the framework to keep in mind is that when the elites send their children to school, they are being groomed. They are being groomed to be the leaders of society, to herd the masses. And who are the masses? They are our children who are being sent to school, and they are being trained to be corporate worker bees. They're being trained to work jobs. Well, for any of us that have worked a job, we know that no matter how successful you are, job stands for just over broke. At Classical Learner, we do not advocate for raising our children to be average. We advocate for raising our children to be exceptional. And that means raising them not to get jobs, but to start businesses and have the skill set, talent stack, and capability to not only start a business, not only to have the confidence and the dreams, but to be able to take that business and bring it to fruition and make it a successful venture so that they can live as independent, free, and sovereign individuals. Because that is what we want from our children. We want them to be moral. We want them to be strong. We want them to be independent. We want them to be sovereign. And we want them to be capable. Forgive me for a second. I hear my little puppy chewing on, my dog ate my homework, chewing on my paperwork. Lucy, Daddy's on a live stream. Lucy. You stay here with me, baby? All right. Where was I? Sorry, my dog was eating my homework. Little puppy I got a few weeks ago. She almost died, but now she's doing very well. So she's going to be pretty big. She's going to be over 30 pounds, but right now she's about the size of a shoe. So could you not eat my paperwork? I have to put you in the other room. Thank you. Thank you. All right, where was I? Yes, so I was talking about the 14 lessons taught at elite private schools that public school students are denied, that our children are denied. So let's get right into it. Lesson number 1, and this was by John Taylor Gatto, who, if you haven't read his books again, start with Dumbing Us Down. It's a must read for any parent. Lucy. Lesson number 1. Students form a unique theory on human nature. What makes people tick? The theory is derived from, well, before we get into that. So students form a unique theory on human nature. Why is that? Because in elite private schools, again, the students are being groomed to be shepherds. They're being groomed to lead the masses, to be corporate titans, to be politicians, to be congressmen, to be presidents. And with that, in order to do that, an understanding of what makes people tick is very, very important. That's not what we're taught in public schools. So how do private schools go about teaching their students to understand human nature? Do they tell them about human nature? Do they tell them what to think? Or do they have them experience the world, have them study the world, and formulate their own theories on human nature? Well, of course, they have them formulate their own theories. And the way they do that is students study history, philosophy, theology, literature, and Lucy, I'm gonna punch you, girl. Come here. Literature and law. And when they put those topics together, what they're really looking at is what has made humanity tick historically. What is your philosophy on human nature? How does theology play into it, right? How are people's thought processes impacted by their religious beliefs or their lack of religious beliefs? How can you reach an atheist if you're trying to sell them something? How can you reach a Christian if you're trying to sell them something? How can you reach the Muslim population, the Jewish population? Literature, of course, at elite private schools, their students are reading, which your children should be reading. And finally, law. What can we learn from the study of law, especially in a society that is a democratic republic? We could learn how people judge morality, right? What is morality? You could find morality in law. Is taxation theft? Are the masses okay with that? Are the masses okay with the initiation of force under certain pretenses? Those pretenses mainly being that a group of people got together and said, this is law. And then when you put history, philosophy, theology, and law together, you can form a unique theory on what makes people tick. And the idea is training your child to know how to work a crowd, to know how to win over large groups of people. Because whether they're the CEO in a boardroom, whether they're a congressman giving a speech in front of a large group of people, or whatever it is that they're doing, if you give a child the ability to win a crowd, and a big part of that is understanding what makes people tick, then you are giving them power in which the ordinary child is denied. Because in public schools, They are briefly reciting facts to children about these topics. They're not going into them. They're not doing original reading primary documents and formulating their own theories. So when we raise our children, we want to take these concepts taught in the public schools and we want to apply them to the lessons we teach our children. And within all of this, I want to stress that, and you'll see this repeated throughout the elite private schools when I go through these 14 lessons, that in the private schools, the children form their own theories about what makes people tick, their own unique theory on human nature. You want your children getting back to primary documents. You want them forming their own unique theories. You want them, whether that's on human nature or whatever it might be, because what they're teaching at these elite private schools is the process of thinking, how to think over what to think. They are teaching critical thinking skills. Take two students. This is a very simple concept, and it's criminal that most people don't understand this, and it's criminal that the public at large allows this to continue. Because take the study of history, for example. You take the Civil War. You can sit a child down for 3 weeks and tell them that this battle happened and that battle happened and this was the general and this is what it was fought over. And I want you to memorize this information for 3 weeks. You will be giving a multiple choice test or even a short write-up at the end of 3 weeks, and you will write down, you will repeat what has been said to you. The skill taught is memorization. Memorization is the least useful skill there is. In fact, going into this, I could have just memorized the 14 points, but if I didn't have the ability to analyze them through critical thought, it really wouldn't do me or you much good. Take a different child who is told to study the Civil War and to start reading the primary documents, read the original writings of Abraham Lincoln, read the original writings of Ulysses S. Grant, or whoever it might be. And then after you read one primary document, find what piques your interest and read the next primary document related to that issue, that topic, that part of the Civil War. And then, whether that takes you 3 weeks or 3 months, when you are done, I want you to formulate an original theory, put that on paper, an original theory based on primary documents created by you on any topic you choose as it relates to the Civil War. This child is learning critical thinking. I need to critically think how to train this puppy. We don't eat that. We don't eat that, Missy. We don't eat that. You're lucky I love you. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. She is cute, isn't she? My girl. My wife would tell you she's my girl, but you know how it goes. Anyway, so you see the difference in the way the education system is formulated. Are we teaching memorization or are we teaching critical thinking? Which, lesson number 1, students form a unique theory on the human race, on human nature, on what makes people tick, derived from history, philosophy, theology, literature, and law. These students are not repeating back information. At a very young age, they are being tasked with going through original literature and forming unique theories on what makes people tick. And then when they get older and they get out into the real world, you guessed it, they're very comfortable winning over a crowd, they're very comfortable with marketing, and all of these things that public school students find very difficult. Things that I've had to teach myself, that I'm still teaching myself, but I know my child will understand much better than me. Well, all right, how do I word this? I want to word it the proper way, right? We all fear that, well, especially when we talk about homeschooling or unschooling or education on top of what the school system is providing, however you want to go about it, right? We say, but I don't know this. I don't know computer coding. I don't know marketing. I don't know this. I don't know that. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be an expert on this stuff to teach it. What you have to be is a few steps ahead of your child. And as long as you are, you could get them pointed in the right direction, with the objective being having your child become the expert so that after 6 months, it would have to be them who's teaching you about the subject. It's feedback-based learning. You are having your child learn through doing. You're working as a guide and pushing them in the right direction. Teach your children how to think, how to learn, how to teach themselves, not to repeat what has been told to them, and they will grow up stronger for it. Lesson number 2. This is something I've spoken about before, but I will continue to speak about. Elite private schools teach children or give children strong experience in the active literacies: reading, writing, and public speaking. I've also worded this as grammar, logic, and rhetoric. This is known as the classical trivium. If you want to know more about the classical trivium, give me 1 second. I have a good resource for that. Copy. I'm going to put it in the comments right here. All right, little girl, I'm putting you down. Yeah, go get the sheet. Go get the sheet. All right, 1 second. I don't like watching the delay. It pisses me off. There you go. Okay. All right, so that link I just posted, if you click on it, it will take you to a landing page, and it will email you the parent guide cheat sheet. And on that cheat sheet, there's links included to a website which helps people teach themselves the classical trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. It sounds scary. You start to get into it, you realize it's not that scary, and it's vital learning for young people. So it's something you definitely have to teach your children, because if you go back and you study, I'm called Classical Learner, right? That's my company. If you go back and you study earlier civilizations, even early America, they taught their children the classical trivium: grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So, what is grammar, logic, and rhetoric? Grammar, right? Is that a comma? Or I'll word it the way God worded it: reading, writing, and public speaking. Obviously, children should be reading a lot of books. They should be getting back to primary documents. They should be chasing their interests, reading as much as possible. And as they start to do that, you want to have them write about what they're reading, then review what they're writing, and talk to them about the importance of, yes, traditional grammar, but also the importance of defining terms. And that's where reading, grammar, that's the way it's taught at these elite public schools. So, well, I want to word this the right way so they can be proud. All right, if you were to attend if you went to Princeton and you joined the debate team, right? The first thing they would say you have to do at the onset of any debate is to properly define your terms. Why is that? You have to define your terms because if a term is not properly defined, it could be slowly twisted throughout the course of an argument to the point where it's almost like someone could bend an argument, right? Think about it in terms of, if you look up the word liberal, right? If you go back to America's founding, the word liberal meant something more along the lines of limited government and equal rights for all people, equality under the law. Well, if you look up the term liberal today, it means just the opposite. It means not less government, it means more government. And it doesn't mean equal rights under the law. It means certain groups are granted certain rights and privileges, and other groups are not. The word has been twisted and bent to the point where liberal no longer means what liberal used to mean. So when we teach our children, we want to teach them, whether they're reading a passage, whether they are having a debate, whether they're writing a paper, that it's very, very important to understand the terms and define their terms at the onset of any debate, writing, or reading. Writing. After we have our children do reading assignments, writing assignments, hold on, I'm gonna put Lucy in the other room because, hey, we're not doing that. Come on, let's go, sweetie. Come on. Go to mom. Go to your mother. All right. Lucy's a puppy, so she was eating a wire. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I did grammar, reading, writing. So in everything our children do, no matter what the assignment really, we want to, and guys, I'm going to get into your comments. I want to get through the 14 lessons because I want to lay it out so that, one, you have them. By the way, you could find them at www.classicallearner.com. Check out my blog for the latest information, like the information I'm presenting to you here, and much more elaboration than I could do speaking to you. I mean, when I write, I could really tighten it up. Speaking of writing, so no matter what our children are doing, there should always be writing assignments. We want to read, write. Then when they write, we want to go over it with them. We want to reinforce the defining of terms so that they're not fooled when, for instance, a public figure is giving a speech and attempting to manipulate language. They understand, okay, I need you to define your term, that type of thing. So we want to read, write. And then when you're writing, you want to go over what they're writing. You want to talk about the defining of terms. Obviously, you want to talk about proper grammar. How do we avoid run-on sentences? What's a colon? What's a semicolon? What's a comma? Nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives, all that stuff we want to go over. So what we're doing is we're teaching proficiency in the active literacies. And as they start to get more advanced, as you've done this with them for a few years, think about it, if you start this when they're young, by the time they get to the middle school age, you could have it where they start grading their own papers. They start going over it and correcting the grammar themselves. And then after they do that, you can look at it, go over it yourself, see if you catch anything they missed. If they missed anything, then you pull them in. You say, look, you missed this when you were grading or reviewing your own work. And then what you're doing is, one, you're teaching them that it's their responsibility to get better at grammar, to get better at writing, to get better at formulating arguments, which is what writing is. And you're going over it with them so that when they miss something, you're stepping in and filling in the gap. And again, the same concept we discussed earlier, they are going to become better at this than you because you were not taught this. Well, you might have been, but I wasn't taught this when I was young. I had to go get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I wasn't taught this. And then I just taught it to myself. Isn't that something? And then finally, reading, writing, public speaking, or grammar, logic, rhetoric. Rhetoric being public speaking. I see I have some bears here. Well, Owen talks a lot about rhetoric, right? So in elite private schools, public speaking is part of their daily lives. They are expected daily to give presentations, to speak in front of their classmates, but not just in front of their classmates. They are routinely, as much as possible, expected to get out into the public sphere and speak in front of people. If you don't think practice makes perfect, and I get it, I'm not perfect. You could pick apart the way I speak, but if you go watch my videos from when I started doing this 18 months ago, I was not comfortable at all speaking in front of a camera. Now I am immensely comfortable speaking in front of a camera. I am immensely comfortable speaking in front of a crowd. I gave a speech as the best man at a wedding just a couple of weeks ago. 250 people, didn't even faze me, didn't even break a sweat, had the crowd cracking up laughing because I'm very comfortable speaking in public now because I've done it. Well, with our children, we want to make sure they do it from as young an age as possible, and that's what they do at these elite private schools. So this is called the Classical Trivium. Again, click on the link I posted above. That is the parent guide cheat sheet. You'll be sent an email. See if it goes to your social or your spam. If you didn't get it, sometimes people say it does that. But on that, you'll see it's a great resource. And within it, you'll see a link to an educational resource on the Trivium so that you can teach it to yourself, better understand it, so that you can teach it to your children. Number 3. You guys will like this. Insight into major institutional forms. Courts, corporations, the military, education, and big institutions such. So at these elite private schools, children are taught from a young age to study the inner workings of elite institutions. So FFR News was originally all about politics. You want to put that in a political lens. You want to talk about And for those of you that aren't politically driven, that's fine. The one thing you do hear about all the time is fake news. So what you hear is, no, they're fake news. No, they're fake news. Well, at these elite private schools, the children are taught from a young age to understand how institutions work. So if you start to peel off the layers of what would be the corporate media, you would find huge money interest in the background. You would find that there are 6 parent organizations. So right, we have this illusion that there's all this media choice, right? But there are 6 parent organizations that are the parent companies of 90%, it's a literal number, 90% of all of the media that you consume. So although there's this illusion that you have all of these reporters reporting all this different information, you would know that actually there is a very small handful of wealthy people who control these 6 corporations who have a large say over everything printed in the media. So while they might not control everything that's said, they can certainly shut down what they don't want said. And that's a lot of what we see in the media. And then you start to understand, when you look into institutions, you start to understand political institutions. So you start to track the money of how the Republican Party, the money trickles down through the Republican Party, and the money trickles down through the Democratic Party. And what you'll find is that a lot of these same money people who are buying these politicians within these parties are also have major influence over these media companies. So now you say, wait a second, the media is supposed to be separate from the government, but because I understand corporations, because I understand institutions, I understand that these political parties are quite literally intertwined with the corporate media, the term I like to use for them over mainstream, with the corporate media. Now, you don't have to look at this through a political lens, and as I'm attracting more and more people who might not have the political insight and experience that I have, I don't want to scare them away. The point is that you want your children to study. You don't have to understand them yourself, but you want your children to perform original research studies on how institutions operate within a variety of fields to understand where the leverage is coming from that is formulating the policies within these institutions. Because then, when your children get out into the real world, they'll have a better understanding of how to operate within these institutions, if that's the route they go, and outside of these institutions. But this isn't something that's taught in the public schools. In public schools, if you want to talk about what public school students are taught about major corporations, they're taught that John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil, Carnegie, American Steel, they were these evil corporate titans, and they had these big evil monopolies, and then Teddy Roosevelt, the trust buster, came in, government knocked him down, saved the day, and then that was the end of the corporations, and now the government's really good, and the corporations are controlled by the government, and don't worry about anything, don't worry about any understanding deeper than that, and when it's convenient, we'll tell you the corporations are bad, and when it's not convenient or inconvenient, we'll say, well, you know, these corporations, they have their constitutional rights, and they have their First Amendment rights, and people don't understand the interlocking between government and corporations because they're just not taught that way, and they're taught to think in a binary fashion. They're taught to memorize information, to repeat information, but not to think critically and analyze information to say, wait a second, who's giving me this information? What is their agenda? Where is their funding coming from? Is there more information? Are there any contradictions within what they are saying? That's all taken away from us. So when we raise our children, and this is lesson number 3, we want to make sure that as part of their assignments, like you see, you don't have to do this all the time, but as some of their assignments, maybe every few months, maybe one big assignment a year, the beautiful thing about educating a human being is you can do it so many different ways, but you want to make sure you incorporate into those lessons a study of how these big institutions operate so that they can better understand the world and they can feel empowered rather than confused, rather than manipulated, rather than scared as they become adults and get into the real world. Critical thinking is fun, isn't it, guys? I like it. Number 4, repeated exercise in good manners and politeness. You know, it's funny, when my father, when I was a child, my father used to always say to me, Brett, I want you to learn how to golf. I want you to learn how to golf. And I didn't really listen to him much. I golfed a little bit, but I just never took to it. And he said the reason he wanted me to learn how to golf was he saw a lot of very successful business people golf, and he wanted me to understand how to do business on a golf course and how to shoot the shit, so to speak, and the opportunity that lies within that. Well, turns out he was right about that. I didn't know it at the time. And we want to teach our children how to interact socially within a variety of settings with a variety of people so that they can use that to their advantage as they get older. How do we do that? My first inclination would be to put them in those situations, to put them in situations that they're uncomfortable with. Talk to them about the way they're dressing and how that's going to be perceived within this situation. Does it work to their advantage? Are they invoking the reaction, the emotions they want out of their crowd, out of their target, if this is a business situation? And that type of thing. How do you interact? When do you speak? When do you speak up? When is it to your advantage to make a joke? And in doing this, you're teaching them how to work a room, how to operate within a business setting where you're dealing with powerful people, when you're dealing with CEOs and people who think who they are, and that can only work to your child's advantage. Again, remember what I said from the beginning. The children at these elite private schools, they are being groomed for what? They are being groomed to be the shepherds of the masses, whereas public school students are being groomed to be sheep. What we are going to do as parents is teach our children the same skills being taught to the children of the elites, but then we're going to pair that with morality. And what we're going to get are absolutely amazing human beings who have the potential not only to live phenomenal lives, but the potential to make changes that me and you probably can't even envision at this point in our lives, to change the world. Lesson number 5. This is a big one. Independent work. At these elite private schools, students drive, Gatto estimated about 80% of their workload was independent. 80% of their workload was student-driven. And remember when I talked to you about the Civil War study? Start studying the Civil War. Oh, you read this from Ulysses S. Grant and this piqued your interest? All right, well, start studying that aspect of the war. Start reading, doing more readings as it related to what you were interested in, and just let your child take it where they're going to take it and formulate their own unique theories. And by doing that, you're teaching them to be the person that decides what they work on. And that's how you teach entrepreneurial spirit. That's how you teach your child to be the CEO of a corporation rather than to be a person with a job just above broke. 80% of the workload. Number 6, physical sports are a necessity. It's funny. When I started doing this, the first article I ever wrote was titled, I hadn't studied copywriting, by the way, so I didn't know that this wasn't a good title. We teach ourselves skills along the way, but it was titled, Why You Should Introduce Your Children to Violence. Now, I preface that by saying, your child should never be struck in your home. You should never hit your child. I'm a strong advocate of peaceful parenting. We'll get into that another day. But the world is violent. The world is full of confrontation. And it's your job as a parent to introduce them to confrontation. So the way I suggested people do that is at age 2, you get them in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA fighting. You get them in karate. When they get into the PAL level, which is elementary school age, sign them up for wrestling, which, by the way, my father signed me up for wrestling when I was in 3rd grade. And because of that, I always had more confidence in eye-to-eye situations, or even when I was looking up at someone throughout the course of my life, because I always had confidence that I knew how to defend myself, and I had experience being physically attacked. And especially for young males, this is something that they will need, whether you like it or not, over the course of their life. Not to mention the ancillary benefit of one day your child's going to be 20 years old, 22 years old, whether you like it or not. They're going to go to bars, they're going to chase girls, they're going to hang out with their friends, and you will feel a lot more comfortable knowing that they're familiar with being physical, and they know how to defend themselves if they have to do so. But physical sports are a necessity not only for those reasons, because what are the other things that physical sports teach? We want to get them involved in team sports as well, by the way. Where is a better place, or what is a better way to get experience with leadership than being a member of a sports team? I know for me that was very valuable. I was the captain of my JV lacrosse team when I was only in 9th grade. I got called up to varsity the final week of 9th grade. I was already the captain of my varsity team by 11th grade. And what that did, I didn't know it at the time, but it gave me a lot of experience being a leader of men, which is, I'm not going to say I have it completely figured out as to how to teach our children to be leaders, but getting involved in sports just has so many benefits, and teaching leadership skills is one of those benefits. So it's definitely something that we as parents want to do, and it's something that the elite private schools, obviously, something they do and find to be very valuable. Number 7. Students form a theory of access. I actually wrote an article on this. I'll post it for you guys. A theory of access on how to get access. A theory of access on how to get a theory of access, which is the formulation of a theory on how to get access to any person or institution. So I'm going to post this for you guys. www.classicallearner.com. By the way, if you guys could go to classicallearner.com and sign up for my email list, that would be very helpful to me, and I think would also be mutually beneficial to you. Here it is. The article I wrote titled, How to Teach Your Child to Access Influential People and Institutions and Make Connections Like the Children of the 1%. And I will post that right there, so if you could click on that when you get a chance, give it a read. You'll find it beneficial. Get back to my list. All right, there we go. So a theory of access, right? How do we view the job world, the working world, as parents coming up through public school? I know for me it was always get an education, get a degree, and make sure you have a really nice, tidy resume, right? You want that resume to look nice. Don't have any grammatical errors, or your resume is just going to get ripped up and thrown out. And make sure your social media doesn't have anything controversial, because if you do, well, you're just not going to get hired. Yeah, they used to say that to me. Well, they wouldn't like my social media. You're just not going to get hired. Liberty Snake Bear, thank you for signing up. I appreciate that. So we think we go on a job interview, we answer their questions, we're really uptight, right? Well, first of all, for any of us that have been on a job interview or have done interviews, which I've interviewed people, what you're really looking for is, do you like the person? Are you going to want to be around this person? Is this person funny? Is this person, do they have, do they have the characteristics of someone you want to be around? I mean, there is so much value in cracking a good joke on a job interview than just answering your questions the way you would like them to be answered, or just be really interesting. But we're taught to go on job interviews, but what they're taught at these elite private schools, and this is very important, it's a theory of access, and children are expected to formulate their own theories. Notice again, They're not being told how to get access. They're being challenged to formulate their own theory and to think about these things. They are being taught critical thinking within every lesson. And this is what they teach at these elite private schools. So they're not being taught to go on job interviews. They're being challenged to formulate unique theories on how to get a sit-down interview with the CEO. Screw a job interview, right? If you're in the field of, I don't know, electrical cars, whatever, computer coding, if you have some unique idea that you want to bring to fruition, but you feel like you just need funding, all right, well, how do you take action? How do you get the attention of Mark Cuban so that he'll agree to sit down with you, right? How do you get the attention of Elon Musk so that he'll agree to sit down with you? If you want to do something with policy, how do you get the attention of the mayor of the city you live in or the mayor of the town you live in so that they're willing to sit down with you and hear you out? If you can learn that skill, well, you have a major leg up over someone who's looking to do a good job on a job interview. Well, this is quite literally what they teach at these elite private schools. Now, I can't tell you how to do it. I can tell you how I'm going to go about teaching this to my child. And what I'm going to do is follow their natural interests. So, for example, I gave in the article, a lot of young children are interested in sports, right? All right. Well, rather than go for a normal summer job, have them do the research, figure out who's in charge of hiring the ball boy, right? And then challenge them to whatever it might be, but to do it in their own way. This is their challenge. I want you to make a video or write a letter or do whatever you think it is you have to do, or maybe go knock on their door, maybe create a personality profile, do some research on this person, and figure out what has made them tick in the past. And my challenge to you is to get a sit-down, one-on-one with the person who hires the ball boy for the New York Jets. Now, they might be successful, they might not be successful, but what you're doing is teaching them and you are challenging them to engage in critical thinking to develop their own theory of access. And you're showing them a different way that if you have a great idea, try to take it right to the top. You don't always have to jump through loopholes. You can do amazing things if you just think outside the box and think differently. And this is what children at these elite private schools are taught, and this is what we should challenge our children to learn. And again, I don't have all the answers. I came up through public school myself, but I do understand how to teach. And if you want the plea to authority, I have a bachelor's degree in 7 to 12 history education, and I have a master's degree in birth to 2 special education. So I am certified by the state of New York to teach children from birth all the way up until 12th grade, so I know how to teach. Yeah, bullshit. I didn't learn anything useful there. But I do know how to teach, and you do that through feedback-based learning, following your child's natural interest, guiding them in the right direction, and challenging them to do something else. And within that, you're trying to get them to understand and learn different topics. So I want to revolutionize the way you think about raising your children. I want to revolutionize the way you think about educating your children. And within doing that, you have to be willing to open up your channels of thought. And I know people that just by the fact that you're here means that you are an open thinker, that you found crazy people like me on the internet who do things like start corporations and try to revolutionize the way we educate our children. So we as parents are capable of doing these things. Do not let Kant get into your mind. You can raise your children differently, and there's so many ways you can do it. You can do it through homeschooling, which I'm doing, which is 100% of the time. You can do it through just unschooling, where you're doing extra education on top of what the school system is teaching your children. You could set up agreements with the school district. I know people that have done this, where they go to school 3 days a week and you homeschool them 2 days a week. Whatever it might be, there are so many different ways to educate a child. But the one thing that I would say is crazy, the one thing that I would say is insane, is to give the most precious thing in the world to any parent, the mind of your child, the soul of your child, because school is teaching morality. They're just teaching their own form of morality, which I don't think is very moral, in my opinion. To give that over to an institution that you know has failed you, and you know statistically fails the overwhelming majority of people within a society. To me, that's insanity. Barnaby. Gotta give it to him. He says funny things. 8. Responsibility is an essential part of the curriculum. Always take responsibility when offered, and always deliver more than is asked. So, one of the lessons taught at these private schools are students are challenged. They're challenged to take on responsibilities. How do we do this? You can do this through getting your child involved in the local church. Maybe there's a church event. Have them volunteer, challenge them to volunteer to manage a few people and take part in, take charge of an assignment, whatever that assignment might be. You can do that through church events. You can get them involved in charity events, soup kitchens. You could have them start their own charity event in which they are organizing, they are marketing, they are giving people assignments, and they are taking on responsibility. And with doing that, you're teaching them different skills, obviously, and you're teaching them that they are they are responsible for whatever it is they agree to do. They are expected not only to do a good job, but to do a better job than other people would expect of them. And they are responsible for their lives. And they're responsible, and that lesson, it travels. They're responsible for their economic situation, and they're responsible for starting their business and running their business, because no one's going to do it for them. And with it, they're gaining a skill set in a wide range of areas that children in public schools, quite frankly, they're denied. They're just not going to get it. Arrival at a personal code of standards. Number 9, arrival at a personal code of standards. Students create their own standards of production and standards of morality. I'm just going to grab an article here, because I also wrote an article on that, so if you want to read that, you can do so. This article is titled, "School Teaches Values in Opposition to My Own, and I Fear the Long-Term Impact It Could Have on the Person My Child Becomes." And if you want to talk about theory of access and my copywriting skills, which is the art of writing headlines, which I don't know, they still might suck, but I was able to have a one-on-one phone conversation with Mike Cernovich. I had a 15-minute one-on-one phone conversation with Mike Cernovich. I talked to him about what I was trying to do in terms of starting my business, and one of the books he told me to read was Copywriting by Ben Settle. So I read that, and it helped me with my copywriting skills. So I was able to access Mike Cernovich, someone who has been immensely successful on social media. And that's my own journey, but my son will be a lot better at all of this than I am. So by the way, that article's on the link I just posted. Let me get back to what I was talking about without having 1,000 different thoughts. Yes, arrival at a personal code of standards. Very interesting, and I recently had a conversation with someone who's in this chat right now. I won't give it away, but I recently had a conversation where they brought up to me, which I was very impressed with, George Washington. You should read. You should read this. I have read it as well. Wrote the Rules for Civility and Decency, in which he came up with 100 rules, basically, which basically were his code of morality, his code of standards, his code of how you should act as a gentleman, all that. And the most impressive thing about the rules for civility is he wrote this when he was only, don't quote me, 13, 15, 16, 17 years old. He wrote it as a teenager. And he had formulated 100 rules for civility. He had formed his own code of morality. Of course, the Founding Fathers, many of them, that was derived from Christianity, which my sense of morality derives from Christianity. But as I educate parents on how to educate their children, what I would say is I'm not telling you what to teach your children. What I'm trying to do is teach you how to teach your children in a way that you're comfortable with. That's why I call myself the Parent Guide. And if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, go to www.classicallearner.com and you'll see sign up for one-on-one coaching, in which I will coach you monthly. I will make some custom lesson plans each month for you and your family. And really, I'm guiding you on how to guide your children. For children, it's written down. I forget exactly. I think for children under 9 years old, it's like $9.99 a month. For children, I forget the age brackets, but it's $9.99 a month, $19.99 a month, and $29.99 a month, something like that, for children based on their age bracket. And basically, I assist families in homeschooling or unschooling or just giving extra education to their children, or whatever it is. I educate parents on how to better educate children. And again, I can do that because I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree from the state of New York. Whip-de-doo. I don't think I learned anything valuable in school. The one thing I got good at was, by the end of my master's program, I was good at writing. I remember I was in my master's program and like all the ladies in the program were like, "Brad, help me with the writing. Help me with my papers." And I was like, "You want me to help you with your papers?" And I realized, I was like, wow, I'd actually become a good writer. I was so bad growing up, and my teachers always told me I was so bad that when people were asking me to help them with writing, I laughed. And then when I graduated my master's program at the top of my class with a 4.0 GPA, and I was given the award for the #1 student in the program, I thought, remember those teachers that said I was just no good? Gotcha. Sorry, that just makes me feel good, but I probably should look into humility in my moral code of standards, so there's that. Offered arrival at a personal code of standards. So in that article, I give a lot of tips onto the strategies I'm using to help my child arrive at a personal code of standards. The strategies I offer out might not be the same as yours, but it's really, again, what I do, it's just to get you going in the right direction, to get the ball rolling. So with everything I do, remember, I'm not telling you how to do it. You got to open up your train of thought. I'm trying to teach you how to educate your children in a way that helps them become the person you want them to become, because we all have a vision of the person we want our child to become, and it's just we don't quite know how to do it. Now, I'm not saying I got this locked down. I absolutely know how to do it, but what I'm saying is I'm, in my opinion, a pretty well-read person, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what my business is, and I do believe, and I have, and I can help people do this. So, number 10. This is, I love that I've already been teaching this, and this is very important, people. This is very, very, very important. Number 10, be at ease with the arts. Art, music, sculpting, architecture, painting, dance, design, literature, and drama. I would add to this computer coding, construction, and engineering. And the term I coined for this is, at Classical Learner, we teach creative excellence. I guess they teach this at the elite private schools as well. And when I say creative excellence, all right, in Greece, for example, A man wasn't considered educated unless he was capable of depicting through drawing or painting or sculpting, depicting his thoughts on so that people could see them. If you couldn't do that, you were considered educated. Which, unfortunately, thanks to my education, I have the handwriting of a 5-year-old, and so, according to ancient Greece, I myself wouldn't be educated. But you bet your bottom dollar my child will be an incredible artist, because I'll make sure of it. In fact, I have a piano right next to me that I purchased so that my child can grow up in a culture of the arts. And every day we draw, and every day we play music, and he still thinks I'm good, which is hilarious. But he'll be a lot better than me. Like I said, you don't have to be great to make sure your child's great. Not to mention, he'll really appreciate it when he's 23 years old and he's strapping and good looking and he can play music, because ladies tend to like that, so he'll appreciate that aspect of it as well. But creative excellence is the idea that our children should have the capability, the understand, and the know-how to take any thought they have in their mind and bring it to fruition in the real world. Whether that's draw it, whether that's bring it to fruition musically, whether that's to build it physically through construction or engineering, whether that's to put it on the internet through computer coding, they should be able to make The Sims themselves. Because if you raise your child, and think about this because it's such a simple concept, if you raise your child so that they can take any thought that they have and physically bring it into the world, you just opened up the full potential of their mind and gave it to them. They can access the full potential of their mind. You're telling me a person that can do that isn't going to be able to figure out how to make money in a way that they want to make money? It's such a simple concept. It's something clearly they teach at the elite private schools, yet in public school, it's denied to our children. Our children are made. I hated art. I hated music. And now that I understand these concepts, I hate that I hated them when I was a child, because I wanted nothing to do with them. I remember I got in trouble in art class. And the punishment, this was in elementary school. And the punishment they gave to me was, yeah, an elementary school, what's their favorite class? It's recess, right? They wanted, especially me, I was hyper, I was physical. We did recess when they actually let us be physical, and we would play full games of tackle football. I remember my good buddy LJ, he actually wound up being the captain of the lacrosse team I was on with me in high school. Great guy. My buddy LJ, interestingly enough, I remember when we were like 18, he was like, yeah, man, Ron Paul, libertarianism, and I thought he was a kook. And I look back and I was like, man, LJ was way on the right track. No comment about what that. He was way on the right track with that, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I remember LJ broke his collarbone in our tackle football games at recess. I used to love it. I was a little beast. And the punishment for, I guess, it was music class, acting out, or I don't remember what I did, was I was punished by, I could no longer go to recess. I had to sit in the music room. Man, when I tell you that made me hate music, my stubborn little ass, I was like, nope, I'm not going to play for you. Nope, that was it. But, I'm going to make sure my child just grows up in a culture of music. Every day, on the piano, I suck, but he doesn't know that. And I got a little ukulele I got him. It's a little plastic ukulele, and I play it, and he loves to play it. He's 15 months old. And he'll grow up, and he'll be very good at art, and he'll be very good at the keyboard. I started doing research last week onto teaching children computer coding, so I'm going to be writing something in the near future on classicallearner.com on my blog about getting children involved in computer coding. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but I understand education my child will know how to code. He'll be able to make The Sims from scratch. Watch. So creative excellence is a concept that I really preach to parents, and it's something that we should all think about, right? What can our children do with their hands that is in their mind? Is the baby going to learn to sing? I'm going to try. We'll see. We'll see. I'll write about that eventually, but yes, I do plan on teaching him that. All right. The power of accurate observation and recording. And this is something that gets into the theme of everything we've been talking about, right? The concept of, is your child capable of critical thinking? But, I mean, there's so many ways you can teach accurate observation and recording. You could give your child assignments where you just have them get out into nature. They love nature. And have them do bird watching and sit down with a piece of paper and take notes on how the birds interact within their environment, on how they interact with one another. And you can do the same thing with them, and you can compare notes. And there's so many ways to teach accurate observation and recording, but it's just a skill that you want them to learn. And you want to give them science experiments and have them get engaged in the scientific method. I'm not talking big S science. I'm talking little s science. I'm talking science that you can replicate and prove over and over again. If you go to my Instagram page, let me see, pull up a good one I did recently. It's a good one. Where's a good one? Where is the good one? I posted this on Instagram recently. If I could just pull it up. All right. You guys see that? That's on my Instagram. My Instagram is Classical Learner Today. If you would please go to my Instagram and follow it. It's only recently got it started, so I'm building it up. But this is just a little science experiment that you can do with your children. And with that, you can talk to them about the scientific method. You could write out the scientific method, and you can do the experiment, bring it to fruition. Then you can do it one more time, replicate it, and you could talk to them about the importance of replication. And then for those of you who are very concerned about things like I'm concerned about, you could talk to them about the crisis in the scientific community that you could look this up, that 50% of peer-reviewed science journal articles, when they go to replicate those experiments, they can't replicate it. Well, science that can't be replicated is worthless. It's not really science. It's scientific theory that can't be proven, so it's not scientific fact. This volcano experiment you can do over and over again. That's good science. That's scientific fact. That's the scientific method. All right. So you want to teach your children the skills of accurate observations and recording. Lesson number 12. By the way, if you can please share this link and please tag people who have children who would be interested in this message in general, that would be very helpful to me. Again, go to www.classicallearner.com and when you get there, sign up for email notifications. I'm not annoying with it. I send out like one a week. But that would be very helpful to me, so I greatly appreciate that. And I just posted the parent guide cheat sheet. Click on that, you'll get an email it's a cheat sheet. It has all types of valuable information. Thank you, Liberty Snake Bear. I really appreciate you blasting that out to everyone. It has all types of good information for someone who's just looking to find better alternative ways to educate their children. And again, you can do that completely. If you don't have the time, you could send your children to public school. I don't recommend it, but you could send your children to public school and you can have an entire education curriculum on the side that you're teaching them. And the curriculum that you teach them could be set up to teach them the concepts that the school system isn't going to. You can bridge the gap for what the school system is lacking. Now, the failures the school has morally, that's a whole nother ball game. But if you have a nice moral family and you make sure you let them know your moral principles and you talk to them about morality and right and wrong, and make sure your children know you love them and you're there for them. Make sure you show up at their sporting events, whatever it might be. If they're in a drama club, make sure you show up at their play production. Show up. Let them know you're there. Let them know you love them. And they'll take on your morals and they'll be all right. Okay. 12. The ability to deal with challenges of all sorts. And the example, a good example is if your child is shy and they're not comfortable with public speaking, well, get on out there, Johnny. It's time to do some public speaking. But really, the overall theme of what I preach at Classical Learner is that everything we do within our child's education should be a challenge. So a parent that I was speaking with had a young child who was very interested in cooking. So what I suggested is, okay, challenge that child to make a cookbook. Well, they've never done anything like that. They're not comfortable doing it. Exactly. So what you do is you challenge them to make a cookbook, and you can help your young child with the making of the cookbook. So first, you can have them study how cookbooks are generally put together and formulated, where the pictures are, where the ingredients are listed, where the instructions are listed, just so they can brainstorm some ideas. Then you can have them put together the cookbook so they can do the illustrations. They can get the illustrations online, however they want to do it. I prefer if they would do the illustrations themselves. They can list the ingredients, do the research on the ingredients, and put together a cookbook. Oh, all right, they're done. No, they're not done. Next step, all right, well, you made this cookbook. Why don't we challenge them? And you're a parent. You could guide if it's ready. Why don't we challenge them to get their cookbook published? What? What do you mean? My child be a published author? You're teaching them to take on challenges, and you're teaching them to always level up in their mind. You're creating a mindset within a child so that they're always wanting to take on challenges, but it's within topics that they're already interested in. Unlike the school system, which has them learn out of context topics that they're not interested in, we're teaching them in context what they're interested in, giving them challenges, and teaching them to conquer challenges as they level up. All right, they got their book published. Oh, that's incredible. Why don't we make a digital version of that book? Now you're teaching them video creation and video editing. Wow, you had success with that. And again, you could judge where they are with it. Why don't we get our child a book on internet marketing and have them read a book on internet marketing? They could write a paper about what they learned on the book from internet marketing. You could have them take an online course of some type about internet marketing and then have them market their book. So you see how you took this one topic that a child's interested in and you followed their lead and you gave them assignment after assignment after assignment, which is teaching them to take on challenges, to conquer challenges, to always level up in their mind, and to be the progenitor of their own workload. And you start to teach this mindset to a child from a young age. What is this person going to be by the time they're 18? Are they going to be what me and you were when we were 18? No, they're going to be a lot better than we were. And they're going to be a lot better than any of these children coming out of the public school system. A habit of caution in reasoning to conclusions. So, this is very important, and for many of you that are, because again, this was originally a political channel, you're well aware of that, right? If you look at most people in society, there's no caution in reasoning, right? It's just this is what I was told to think, and this is what I'm going to think. So the way I try to teach children to do that, or at least I advocate for it, is to teach what I like to call intellectual self-defense. So basically, intellectual self-defense, simple concept. It is the practice of maybe using the Socratic method, but reviewing, making conclusions, then reviewing your own thought process. You could have them do this by putting it on paper. You could have them do this through conversations, and challenging them through the Socratic method to analyze why they have each belief that they have and find out if there's any contradictions. And then if there's any contradictions within the thought process, then you say, okay, well, if you keep these contradictions, really what you're displaying is cognitive dissonance. So how do you reformulate your worldview to make sure that there are no contradictions? And you want to teach this way in writing, in dialectic, in one-on-one conversation from a very young age. And if you do that, they will have a much better habit of caution in reasoning to conclusions. And it really goes into the teaching of how to think versus the teaching of what to think, where the school system is teaching people what to think. We want to, this is memorize this information for 3 weeks, repeat the information back, and if you repeat it back, you get an A+. That's memorization. That's what to think. Critical thinking, analyzing your own thinking processes, finding out if you have any contradictions within your own thought process, readjusting your worldview based on that to make sure you don't have cognitive dissonance. Caution in reasoning to conclusions. I love this meme. I love this. Hold on. I put this Classical Learner today on Instagram. This is one I did, which I absolutely love. By the way, follow my Instagram. Okay. This is a quote from someone I think's a pretty good intellectual. I don't know. You judge for yourself. You tell me. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. How many times in your life, there's bears here, you see it a lot. Owen's a good example. How many times in your life have you been in a conversation with someone and a topic comes up and they will be insulted by the insinuation that you would want to have a discussion on a topic because they just know what is right, right? This person doesn't have a habit of caution in reasoning. An educated mind can entertain any idea, review the facts, the debated facts on any topic, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're accepting it. They're just capable of looking it over and thinking about it critically. So anyone you come across who you bring up a topic and they instantly get insulted, don't get insulted. The insult is on them. They are tipping their hand that they don't think for themselves, that they don't understand how to think. So when we raise our children, we want to teach them how to think. Hey Lucy, I'm doing my stream. I'll be done in a minute, baby. It's my little puppy. If you caught the beginning of the stream, she was there. And Owen Benjamin, for those of you, the Bears that are here, he's a good example, right? He brings up the moon, and how many people do you see get insulted about the moon, right? They can't hear the argument, and I'm not listening to you anymore, you're crazy. His latest thing that he's talking about, I don't know if what he's saying is true or not. I haven't done research on it. He doesn't believe that nuclear radiation, the nuclear fallout, is a real thing when it comes to nuclear bombs. You could get insulted by that. I don't know if that's true or not. He's presented some evidence. But an educated person is capable of hearing that argument out without accepting it. They might accept it, they might not. They might decide it's not true. They might decide have to look into it more. But if you're not capable of doing that, you have not been properly educated. You do not think for yourself. And this is taught at elite private schools. And finally, a constant development. Sometimes with public speaking, and you learn this through experience, you have to catch yourself and slow down. 14, the constant development in the testing of judgment. And an example, something you can do for this is to make long-range predictions, write them down, and then test how accurate those predictions are. Is my judgment good? What percentage am I right? What percentage am I wrong? So it's just a good practice, something you can do with your children. But these are the 14 lessons that John Taylor Gatto concluded elite private schools teach that public schools do not. If you have any questions, I'm going to read over what you guys said now, so I'd be happy to answer them. And it's just something that we should think about. Please go to www.classicallearner.com. That's where I make my blog post. If you do have a young child, I hope from this talk you could see that I will be posting valuable information that will help your child grow into a better person. So honestly, for a parent, I don't know what I would say about a parent who's not interested in that. That's got to look in the mirror for that. So, all right, let's see. I'm going to read back to what you guys said. I just wanted to get through it because I knew this was going to be a long rant. I moved to the USA and I thought public school would be fine. Not great. It's intolerable. You're switching to a Christian private school. That I would highly recommend that over a public school. And then even with the Christian private school, that's great because they are teaching values that are more in line with your own. I would still make sure you focus outside of school on teaching many of the concepts I presented here today. Barnaby said schools are just stepping stones to factories, an army, or prison. It really can be looked at that way. And we talked about it here today, that schools are preparing children to get jobs, to just over broke, to work for corporations. But when we educate our children, that's not the life we want for them. We want them to be the progenitors of their own destiny. I want my child to own the corporation, right? I want him to run his own business or whatever it is that he's doing, or run his own farm, or whatever it is that he wants to do. I don't want him to work for a corporation. I don't want him to be the hands on a farm. I want him to be the man. So I'm going to give him the skills to do that. If he wants to do that. For me, my own philosophy is, if my child wants to spend his life backpacking through Europe, he can do that. Just make sure you can take care of yourself, that no one else is taking care of you, and that he has good morals. But I'm going to make sure he has the skills to do whatever he wants. That's my role as a parent. That's my job. Yeah, right. Schools are terrible at teaching public speaking and communication. I'm almost done. What's up, Brady boy? You can come in. Hi, Papa. How's my little bear? Look, he's playing the piano. Now I got two crazy dogs. He found laundry. Hey guys, I'm on a stream. Hey, enough. Come here, Lucy. Daddy's talking to the people. All right. Again, Liberty Snake Bear, I appreciate you blasting out the link. I really appreciate that. So, all right, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in today. This was a great stream. I had a great time. I hope you got some valuable insight from it. You want to say hi to me?
Nope.
Nope. And
I look like Who Did It and Ram.
I think you look great. What are you talking about? Brady, come say hi. Brady, look, it's you. What are you doing on the computer? I know, you want to hit the keyboard. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun, so I'm going to take my little guy and we're going to go run around outside. Take care, guys. Brady, blow the people a kiss. Blow them a kiss. 15 months. Playing the piano, blowing kisses. God, I love him. Mwah!